We all have the ability to make mistakes. However, persistence in failure represents a genuine form of foolishness. Around the year 300 before the birth of Christ, in a period when commercial activity flowed mainly through navigation, there lived in Cyprus a prosperous merchant named Zeno of Citium. On one of his expeditions, fate irrevocably intervened, forever altering the course of his existence. The narrative tells that Zeno suffered a shipwreck in Athens, losing all his possessions due to an incident completely outside his control. This once wealthy individual found himself in a desolate situation thousands of kilometers from his home, devoid of financial resources and without the support of anyone willing to support him. For many, this series of events could have translated into a tragedy of an irreversible nature. Most people might not have the ability to recover after such a severe blow. However, Zeno opted for a divergent approach. He reacted uniquely. Now imagine how you yourself would react if all the laborious construction of a lifetime were to be annihilated by the merciless forces of nature. Feelings of irritation and sadness would probably arise, as well as the feeling that life was unfair. These reactions would be completely natural to most of us, however. They were not the reactions of Zeno, the founder of Stoicism. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all the valuable content we're preparing especially for you. When Zeno arrived on the shores of Greece, he expressed that fate wished him greater freedom for philosophy. A small adaptation can last forever, while a slight adjustment in the way of thinking can lead to bigger and more impactful transformations in the future. The fundamental essence of Stoicism lies in the very understanding of acceptance and letting go of what remains beyond our control. After immersing himself in the works of Socrates and other renowned philosophers, Zeno formulated and shared the foundations of Stoicism. In his view, even if we have limited control over the events that affect us, we have the power to control how such events influence our being. Therefore, it is our responsibility to use that authority to our advantage. Rather than bemoaning the possessions he had lost, Zeno chose to concentrate on preserving his composure in the face of this situation. He strove to maintain serenity and impartiality, even in the face of adverse circumstances. In contemporary times, it is common for people to mistakenly interpret Stoics as invulnerable beings, devoid of intense emotions such as outbursts of anger or anxiety. However, the original concept underlying Stoicism was considerably deeper. This ancient philosophy has the capacity to be applied to a multitude of contemporary situations, just as it has been applied millennia ago, and its benefits remain just as marked. Far from just portraying emotionless individuals, Stoicism was a way of existence. By adopting it, we are able to process adverse emotions arising from specific experiences and transform them into thoughts that provide us with a unique perspective of the world. After all, the perspective permeates all aspects, and each of us has different experiences. This implies that perspectives also diverge considerably. Since the days when the Stoics gathered to debate and teach philosophy in public places, Stoic precepts have been believed to have great beneficial potential for individuals of all stripes. Therefore, hiding this knowledge behind the walls of an educational institution was considered counterproductive. As a result of this approach, from slaves to emperors, everyone could dedicate themselves to learning and aspire to become adept at Stoicism. The early Stoics not only preached but also incorporated their teachings into their daily practices. They strove to avoid any form of segregation, leading an ardent fight against inequality, even in unpopular times. Remarkably, even in times when circumstances did not favor it, women were encouraged to dedicate themselves to learning Stoicism and to become adept if they so desired. Nowadays, an increasing number of people are adopting Stoicism as a way of life. In a world filled with unforeseen twists and turns, our emotions tend to interfere with our perspectives. In fact, our sadness is not caused merely by the occurrence of adverse events, but rather by the occurrence of negative and unexpected events. Let's take the example of rain. Although it is beneficial for watering plants, providing water for animals and keeping the temperature mild and humid, our reaction changes when we find ourselves unexpectedly without an umbrella under a cloud of precipitation. However, the question arises, why doesn't it make us cry when it starts to rain? This is because over time we learn to accept the fact that rain is an unavoidable eventuality. We recognize that we do not have control over climate fluctuations, and although we often do not appreciate the rain, we understand that it will eventually cease, giving way again to the sun. In this way, Stoicism instructs us to constantly prepare ourselves to accept the reality that a series of adversities over which we have no control will inevitably happen at some point in our journey. One of the exercises that the Stoics practice is known as voluntary discomfort. The purpose of this exercise is to amplify feelings of gratitude. This can include actions such as sleeping on the kitchen floor or taking a cold shower when a hot shower is normally preferred, among other situations. The purpose of this exercise is to understand that no matter how difficult the situation, we will not only survive but also thrive if our mindset is properly adjusted. By tolerating uncomfortable situations, we are indirectly strengthening our resilience to face future challenges. In the contemporary scenario, where we are constantly exposed to advertisements that insinuate that we will only be truly happy having the latest version of something, following certain visual standards or accumulating a certain amount of money, the clarity of our worldview is often obscured. We receive information from school, society, and our own experience. But often these sources of knowledge guide us along different paths. The question to ask is, do we really need to internalize all this knowledge? The thoughtless absorption of this information can lead to the creation of unrealistic expectations for our lives, often without even realizing it. This scenario can result in disappointment and dissatisfaction, certainly not the best way to live. We must therefore strive to improve and develop ourselves, without anchoring our happiness in material goods or external achievements. It is true that we often try to fill an internal void with external elements, as Seneca once mentioned. A wiser approach is to learn to live with less, freeing up space in our lives for what truly matters. Our pursuit of satisfaction must be based on our intrinsic value as human beings, rather than being tied to material possessions or the acquisition of goods. Instead of looking for happiness in what we have or can get, we should choose to cultivate a mindset that allows us to remain calm in all circumstances, no matter what life has in store for us. After all, at the end of the day, we have no control over most situations that occur to us, but we do have complete control over how we choose to react to them. It is essential to improve our ability to discern between what is under our control and what is beyond our control. This duality of control represents the most fundamental principle of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics instruct us to measure the success of our efforts based on the dedication we put in, and not exclusively on the results those efforts generate. The emphasis is on the process, the act of trusting that process. Let's imagine a worker who has worked tirelessly at his job over the past 6 months and now believes he deserves a promotion. He reports to his boss with a detailed performance report in hand. The boss expresses his gratitude for the results achieved, but does not grant the desired promotion. At that moment, the employee can return home desolate, questioning his competence, or he can return indignant, convinced that life is unfair and that the company acts with partiality. However, he fails to consider possibilities such as the boss is having a tough day, someone else is better qualified for the promotion, or the company is facing financial difficulties that prevent it from awarding the promotion. Although the reasons may be unknown, the employee will remain dissatisfied for a period of time. However, if he anchored his value on the quality of the performance report he delivered and continued to invest in the path he charted to earn the promotion, he could find much greater satisfaction in maintaining the proper perspective. Its purpose would not have failed, it would only suffer a delay. It is true that there are situations in which, despite all efforts, the rewards may not be commensurate with the effort. However, the gist is that when aiming for a goal, it is crucial to put the focus on the effort itself rather than being overly attached to the result. We always keep control over the effort. We always conquer in this area because this is under our command. However, the outcome is influenced by a multitude of factors, and clinging to it often triggers deep frustration. This shift in mindset is central to the very essence of Stoicism. An adept of Stoicism does not measure his success by the financial gains of his ventures, but by the ability to lead a comfortable and happy life regardless of the possession of material items that money can acquire. The 4 fundamental virtues advocate that the frontier of wealth should be defined by the possession of the essential and subsequently of what is sufficient. Justice, one of the most preeminent virtues, instills in us the notion that no one should inflict harm on another, since we are all born interdependent. In modern psychological approaches, Stoicism permeates practices such as cognitive behavioral therapy and logotherapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps patients identify the various negative thoughts that may be precipitating emotional and behavioral problems. This approach enables individuals to logically confront the reasoning behind these unfavorable thoughts. By realizing the lack of foundation in many of these thoughts, it is possible to replace them with more constructive beliefs. On the other hand, logotherapy is founded on the Stoic principle that human beings have a purpose, even in the darkest of circumstances. It holds that we can bring meaning and joy to our lives, even when immersed in adversity. In fact, performing this transformation is not trivial. It is a continuous process comparable to any other. To resolve our internal conflicts in favor of happiness, we must practice self-esteem, realigning our valuation towards spheres that we can control. We must cease focusing our attention on elements beyond our control, focusing instead on what we already have. In this way, we will be able to walk a more satisfying and enriching existential journey. Stoicism provides us with a compass to navigate past and present storms, guiding us towards smoother and calmer seas. And if by chance our boat sinks and we find ourselves in solitude, we can find peace in the certainty that we live a dignified life, even if perhaps not as splendid as we imagined. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I would like to know your opinion about these lessons. If you're new here, consider signing up to walk the paths of wisdom with us. See you soon.